Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages.
I think somebody said that creativity is one of the on-ramps to happiness or something along that line, and I think she's here with me today, and I'm very excited to welcome Nina Meehan to the show. She is a leader and creative thinker with a passion for creating moments of connection and joy through education and the arts. She's dedicated to bringing innovation to the learning process and storytelling to all. An award-winning theater producer and director. Through her work with Bay Area Children's Theater, she's reached more than 700,000 kids and adults. I'll stop for a second. Sink in here a minute. 700,000 kids and adults, and an internationally recognized arts education expert. She writes and speaks frequently on topics including creative parenting, a nonprofit leadership, arts education, and creative thinking. She's also a mom of 3 kids, ages 12, 9, and 5. And you know what? This is the show. I say it all the time, and I'm sticking to my guns. We are a show about creativity. Nina Meehan, thanks so much for joining us here on Mysterious Goings On.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And that was a lovely intro.
Thank you very much. Was it creative? A little bit, kind of.
It felt so. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. Thank you. Very good. You know, and I meant when I said, the show, we interview a lot of writers and we do a lot of genre fiction discussions. But one thing that I'm always so excited about is getting down to the creative process and ways it can benefit people from all walks of life. We've had people who design products for restaurants on the show. We've had musicians. We've had people who do all sorts of things other than write or do the more obvious stuff. And one thing I'm fascinated about what you do is you're talking to parents, the toughest job in the world, about how creativity can make that job not only easier, but more fulfilling and rewarding for everybody, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's this weird thing that happens. Parenting is a incredibly overwhelming, difficult time. I mean, it is. It's hard. You suddenly are in charge of these small people in your house. And we as adults, we forget how to play. We forget how to use our own creativity because in our daily lives, sometimes that's not the tool we're using. And so I just love the opportunity to be able to talk to parents and say, hey, we all have these tools. And you know what? You can do this because we are all truly artists. We are all creatives. We just sometimes need a reminder of how to get there.
Can I just tell you, I have this thing. I have a 12-year-old daughter. She's light of my life. We get along very well. She's very bright, good person. She's a good person. That's the thing I'm most proud of. And that has a little to do with her parents, but a lot to do with just who she is. But she's at that stage from childhood, transitioning into, young teenhood and all that stuff. And I found it intimidating to try to play with her and try to access that part of me that's fun and stuff. And I find myself being more performative, as in goofy dad, rather than really engaging her in a way that I think would be beneficial. Is that something we can talk about today, that what you do could be helpful in?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that what you're bringing up around that, that 12, that I have a tween myself, and they're like right on the cusp of where that childhood innocence and play is just a part of daily life. And when they start to push it away and say, oh no, I want to become the teenager, I'm looking to be older. And so we as parents do end up in that sort of strange mid zone. And I love what you're saying around, like, I feel, that performative aspect. And I do think that there is, to a certain degree, when you hit that stage, that it is our job at that point to help them remember that they still have that play inside of them. So, like, I mean, I'll just give you an example from my 12-year-old that is one of my favorites. So I'm sure this has entered your world as well. The eye roll has become a fixture in our kitchen. And he's really good at it. I mean, it's a skill set. So the first time that we got like a really good eye roll, I looked at my 9-year-old who was sitting next to me and I was like, wow, I think that was a perfect 10. Perfect 10. I held up my scorecard and my 9-year-old goes, mommy, that was a 9.8. 9.8. And it was like, and it is performative, but it allowed him to have a moment where he could laugh with us at the silliness of that weird moment of, I'm a child, I'm a teenager. And so I think that like there is something okay with that performative aspect at that age because it helps draw their silliness out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because especially now with the pandemic and we are at now a week away from it being a year since she stopped going to school. She just goes virtually, and we've all been together. And I have to say this, it's been a struggle only in the sense that, it's every day, same stuff. And you try to break out, you try to play games, you try to do this, and then now I think we're at a stage as a family of just giving each other a lot of space because we feel spring is coming in here. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, by the way. So I'm looking out the window, it's 70 something degrees. It's very windy, but spring is basically coming in, right? So I think we're all just kind of like looking at our watches, feeling the barometric pressure change and thinking, okay, let's just give each other some space. But I feel a little bit of panic. And then we'll stop talking about me right after this, okay? But I feel like, I've had this year with my daughter, which is great because that's some time I probably definitely wouldn't have had, the good parts. But now I'm feeling a little panicky, like, wow, did I waste that time? Did I not do enough fun stuff with her? But there was just so little fun stuff to be done. Just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
I totally do. I mean, I feel like we have just been through the ringer and back this year. I mean, let alone our kids, right? Let alone telling your kids, oh, by the way, you can't see your friends for a year. But it has been an incredibly hard year to be a parent. And I think the main thing that I want to say to what you're saying and just all other parents is, you know what? We all did our best. And that is all we can ask ourselves to do. I mean, I don't know about you, but I actually haven't lived through a global pandemic before. It just hasn't really happened. And I know that feeling. I know, when you're saying like, did I miss out on these opportunities? Should we have done more as a family? Well, we did what we could do and we got through the year. And if our kids are still talking to us at the end of the day, I think we probably did pretty well. Because there is a reality, which is kids do need space. I mean, I respect what you're saying. Like, they do need to, particularly those 12-year-olds and up, like, developmentally, they're not supposed to like us anymore. They're
True.
supposed to be going, oh, no, I don't need mom and dad. I need my friends. I need to explore. I need to find it out on my own. So I think there's been this really intense, weird parent guilt that I've experienced, and I've certainly seen, talk to other friends about, where it's like, did I make the most of my time? Well, yeah, I think we did, because we're here and we're talking about it, and we're still willing to make a joke and have fun and play a little bit. And even if it's just a mini moment here and there, I think that's great.
Thank you. That is so. I needed to hear that so much because and it's good to hear that. I thought you might go, "Wow, Alex, that's unusual," but no, you're saying everybody's probably feeling the same way, right? I remember about a year, not a year, but a few months last summer, we actually went camping, and it was so hot and miserable in so many ways, but it was just good to be out. And as I think my kid said on the way back, it was so funny. And she's a sweetheart. She's not like a smart aleck really, but she said, if I had to be hot and sweaty and miserable, I'm glad it was all of us together because we get along so well. She said something along those lines, which just cracked me up. She's a good kid. She's a really good kid. And I appreciate the bucking up here. So I want to talk to you about what you have coined the 5 benefits of creative parenting. Can we walk through that, please? And I'll stop talking about me because I want to hear about you and what this is all about.
Yeah. So, I started my career at Bay Area Children's Theater. So I have been working since I was 16 years old in arts education. And so when I became a parent, I had all of these tools in my back pocket, ways that I had been interacting with kids, entertaining families, creating these moments of connection with imagination for years and years and years. I mean, I was trained in it. And so I had my oldest, he was actually a 31-week preemie. So he came real early, and he had a lot of challenges when he was first developing, because he was 3 pounds, and his little brain synapses, they just connected in different ways. So when he was really little, like, he didn't really talk until he was almost 3 years old. So I found myself pulling out the tools that I had used as an actor and an acting teacher for years around gesture, facial expression, things that are just a normal part of a conversation when you're teaching a child how to be an actor or putting on a show yourself. And then transferring it, though, to now a 2.5-year-old whose primary communication language at the time was baby sign and gesture. So I had this very interesting kind of, I mean, it was a beautiful bumpy road. It was a bumpy road that I learned an enormous amount, and I'm grateful that he is healthy and happy and 6 inches taller than me today. And I know that a lot of families have gone through that NICU bumpy road, and it's a challenging one. And so I early on had these moments when I was like, wait, I have a skill set here. This is interesting, but I didn't really do anything with it. I mean, I just brought it into my home, and then I went to work and I did my thing, and I had the joy of being creative at work every day. And then I'd come home and, play games with my kids and just do what came naturally. And it was only in the last couple of years that I realized, wait, other parents don't have this toolkit. Like, they don't necessarily know how to just pull a story game from their back pocket, or, take a bunch of paper and some Mod Podge and make weird collages where it's just about how can we use the brightest colors. Like, those aren't things that necessarily come easily to people. So I started kind of developing these, what I call this 5x5, which is the benefits of creative parenting, as well as 5 modalities of creative parenting. So, starting with some benefits. My first one, and I think in the world of COVID times, this one is been really important. Infusing creativity into your family teaches you as a parent to trust your child and teaches your child independence. Trust and independence.
How so?
So, when you embark on a creative process, you are starting with an idea, a concept. You go through the process, and there's some kind of an outcome. Now, you do a podcast that involves a lot of creativity, so you know that outcome is never exactly what you thought it was going to be when you first had the concept, right?
Never.
Never. So you automatically have to be willing to embrace the unknown. And for parents, so much of parenting, we are trying to control the outcome.
True.
So the more that we can watch our child create and go through that process and watch them trust that an outcome will happen and be okay with whatever that outcome is, and that we can do that as well, we're building trust and independence into our relationship.
Okay, very good. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Great. Okay.
All right, so then we go into emotional expression. All right. So here, I mean, this one is pretty clear. We need our kids to be able to know what's happening in their bodies, name their emotions, right? Can't work through an emotion if you don't know what the emotion is. And I see creativity as just a wonderful tool for giving kids that skill set of expressing their emotions. A little story.
Yeah.
We were camping actually during COVID, and my 9-year-old was in the back of our minivan, and it was the beginning of a day. I think we were at a national park, and like, he was just in just one of those moods. I don't remember what it was, like what the trigger was, but he was just like, his little body was like clenched. And I was like, in my head, of course, my controlling mom is going, oh my gosh, it's going to ruin the day. Oh no, the vacation is ruined, right? The whole thing. So I had this, I don't know why I had it, but I had a whiteboard in the minivan with me, and it had like 4 markers on it. And I send it to the back, and I was like, look, I see that you are angry. So I want you to take all that anger and I want you to draw it on this whiteboard. I want you to show me exactly what it feels like inside. And guess what? If you know any swear words, you can even write those swear words. And he was like, oh, right. So he sits back there and I like, it's completely quiet now. And I'm like, and I'm watching him. And then he turns it around and there's this amazing like scribble of color and words. And he says, this is my anger.
Oh.
And he was able to move through it because he was able to express it. So small little things, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. I was, as I heard you speak about this, and I don't want to interrupt too long here because we're going to get to these others, but as a child, I had issues as a child, but I got into theater. I think from the time I was, well, I wanted to do it in elementary school and all that, but when time I was about 12, when I started getting the leads in the junior high plays and the high school plays and all that, all the way up was such a benefit. And I don't think I knew it at the time, but it was probably one of the few things that helped me deal with a lot of, there were some issues in our home, but it helped me deal with those issues and helped me express myself because I had a tremendous amount of anger and frustration in myself. And I think the ability to just, put on makeup and put on a costume and go out and do that is so huge. So when you talk about what you did with your son here, just doing that on a micro level, really, is it because they're feeling heard? Is it because you, as the adult, as the authority figure, as mom, it said, hey, I do care what you think and I want to help you express it? And kids that age, yeah, they're not like us. They don't have all the words. But you had a whiteboard. That's brilliant. I love that. Is that what it was? This is just a venting mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much for kids, so much of the emotional, rigmarole that we as parents experience is just they need to be allowed to express their emotions. I mean, think about, I certainly have been this like the mom in Costco with 3 kids and like, one of them decides to have a meltdown. What am I doing in that moment? I'm going to be like, you can't have a meltdown right now. I'm in the middle of Costco, right? We try and quelch it. Well, there's a reason they're having a meltdown. And no, it may not be a rational reason to us as adults, but to the child, it's really important. So using that creative play to give them permission to know that their feelings are okay, to name those feelings and to express those feelings, just it gives them a sense of ownership of their own well-being.
But you also, though, to my mind, the thing that I think about is you validate them as a fellow human being, not just as a child who doesn't really have any agency because you're a child. Because you do see that if you're in Costco and you see a kid having a meltdown and the parent just mortified. And I get it. I've been there. We've all been there. But the parent actually who takes time to get down, and this is something I used to do with my daughter, is she really didn't freak out much. I don't want to make it sound like she's perfect, but she really didn't do that very much. But every now and then when she did, thing I would always do is get down on one knee, get down to her level. I wouldn't tower over her. I'd look her in the eye to eye, and I'd say, hey, what's going on here, kid? Now, I didn't do exactly what you're doing, but I think it's a variation on that. And I just say, what's wrong? And I remember a lot of times her eyes would move and you could tell her mind was racing like, oh, he's asking what's wrong. He's not just saying, shut up, don't do that, So this is good. This is good for me because I feel, I'm sure I'll find some mistakes too, but you're validating some of the parenting things I did that were effective. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt. This is just fascinating to me, but please continue.
Well, and I think what you're talking about is so important because a child's language is different than an adult's language. They learn through imagination. They learn through play. They speak a different language than us. They don't care that there are other people watching us in Costco. They honestly just don't. So if we as a parent are only trying to translate to talk to them in our language, you can't do this here in Costco. People are watching. Right. I'm literally speaking a foreign language. Whereas what you're talking about, getting down to her level and saying, hey, what's going on? You're speaking her language. And I think that is such a key part of like why I do this work is that creativity We all had it when we were kids. I mean, I
Yeah.
love your example of getting into theater and allowing yourself to put on the costume of different emotions and put on the costume of different characters and see what that felt like. And everybody has something like that. Some kids love to draw, some kids love to play basketball, and it was all about games. We all have these languages of play and creativity, and somewhere along the lines, we silence them. And that's where I'm saying, hey, let's get that back. Let's get that back.
And that kind of leads into the next thing I think about. You talking about building tomorrow's thinkers, right? Because somewhere
Yes.
along the way we lose that. Right? Am I making the right connection here? Please let me know.
Absolutely. So building tomorrow's thinkers. I mean, this one is like, if you look at like, I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So like all the giant tech firms are located right here. And if you look at their websites, they all have like these like what we're looking for in our employee type statements. What are they looking for? They're looking for people who know how to collaborate. They're looking for people who know how to think outside the box. They're looking for people who know how to do a creative process that does not have a known outcome and are willing to take risks. These are all the skill sets that the next generation of brilliant, innovative thinkers are going to need. And it's different than a generation ago. I mean, when we were kids, what we learned, we had to learn how to memorize a lot of facts and know a lot
Yeah.
of data or know how to find that data. Well, these guys, they don't need, the data is right there. It's on the internet. They can find data. They're about searching through the data, figuring out which of the data is accurate, and then using that data to solve problems. So bringing creativity into their house and helping your kids develop those skills at an early age is absolutely setting them up for success.
I love that. And I probably being a little too literal, but a lot of what I'm hearing you say too about what companies are looking for that I think are valuable, and maybe it's because this is what I have, because I'm not a mathematician. I'm not good with numbers. I can analyze things, but I'm not good at that stuff. I'm more good at what I think are called soft skills. I get along with people well. I can help build consensus. I can communicate ideas. I can message, right? So what you're telling me, though, makes me feel good, because I think what I'm hearing is, Alex, even though you're practically, but I understand you have dyslexia, by the way. I read up on you. I have kind of an issue with numbers, kind of a dyscalculia kind of thing, where the numbers get all jumbled up for me. It's weird. Words are fine. Numbers, it's got to be something back in my history, but I have a hard time with. But what you're saying is, hey, the data's right there, man. It's not like you have to go really parse all this data. You just have to look at it and make connections. And at least for me, that's what I'm good at. And I think that's what you're talking about here to a degree.
Exactly what I'm talking about. Making those connections, communicating those connections, using your empathy muscles to ensure that the person you're communicating with is understanding and on the same page as you. All of those, absolutely. It's funny because we call those soft skills, but in the end, I'm like, what's soft about being an effective communicator? What's soft about being the person in the room who can gain consensus and can work with a variety of different kinds of people because they're willing to be flexible in their work style? To me, like, I guess they're not hard skills, but they're certainly like, I don't know. I'm picturing like taffy, right? Like they're the
Right.
taffy
Ooh.
skills. They give you that flexibility.
And they taste good too. So I mean, there you go. No, I love that. I have worked my career. I've been corporate. I've got my own business. I'm a consultant. Now I'm a consultant. I work with a lot of people, a lot of C-suite executives, and a lot of middle managers, and I work with everybody basically. And it's always interesting about how, as a PR guy, I have to bridge the divide between the different personality types that are typically, I mean, your finance, your CFO type, they think one way, typically. It's very rare to find them who don't kind of fit that stereotype, frankly. CEOs, there's a reason CEOs are CEOs. They're very good at, they've got the vision, they're leading the way. But then you get into other people on the team, like those PR people like myself, or you talk to HR people who are very good at that kind of thing. It's just, to me, it's really interesting what you're saying here, Nina, is that if we can develop children who have not completely abandoned as adults that spirit of play, they are going to find that it's going to make them better employees and make their careers more fulfilling. And I love to hear that, because so often I think, and I wonder if you've heard this, so often though, like if I go into a meeting, and I'm obviously not a CFO type, but if I have to meet with a CFO and explain ROI for PR and stuff like that, I am who I am. I always say I'm a little goofy. Maybe I'm not goofy. Maybe I'm just, I'm just a warmer person than they typically can be. But I've actually been criticized as like, does that guy ever, shut up? Or does that guy ever, but that's just how I express myself sometimes. Not all the time, but I've heard it every now and then from those types. And I just think that there's so much going on in our education system where we're trying to make people really good at building widgets, but not so good at thinking. And so I'm sorry I'm all over the box here, but see, I'm illustrating my point about how I'm tiresome to CFOs. So there you go.
No, I think you're right. I mean, our education system, and there are so many amazing, brilliant teachers out there doing incredible work. But the sort of the structure, the bones of our education system are still built on exactly what you're talking about. We're teaching people how to make widgets. We need to be teaching people how to be creative thinkers. And so the more that we can start to bring that into our homes as parents, that's going to start infusing it into the classroom as well, is my hope. And, I've also worked for many, many years with schools and done professional development with teachers. And so like, I think that there's a both and. I'm all about the both and.
Yeah, I like that.
That's how, the more that we as parents can be encouraging those skills, the more that our kids will see those as normalized. And once it's normal to be able to bring a sense of play into a conversation, once it's normalized to say, you know what, I want to think of this from a creative perspective. Yeah, it's going to look different from when they're 8 years old to when they're 28 years old, but the intent can be the same.
Yeah, so that kind of gets into the next point I think you're working through is like happiness through connection. Now, what's that all about?
So, okay, there's this really great study that I love, which is if they put some people in a room to watch a funny movie by themselves, and they measured their laughter. And then they put people in a room together watching a funny movie, and they measured their laughter. And when the people who were together laughed at the movie, it was louder and stronger and longer. And I just think that there is something that we all, particularly in COVID times, we all need to remember that watching a creative show, watching a story unfold, creating a story ourselves, being in a creative process with other people, we connect with those other people and we actually experience enhanced happiness than if we were doing it by ourselves.
And that's poignant right now because we can't really right now go to the theater. We can't go to the movie theater. I mean, I'm talking the live theater, of course, which is such a give and take. The energy from the performers, and then it's reflected back. And then when I was an actor, I know what that's like. But I know what it's also like when you have this communal, as you said, communal sharing of joy. And I don't trust myself. Next time I go to live theater, and I know it's down the road in a few months, I don't trust myself not to burst into tears, to be honest with you, because I've missed that. So I know you
Me
must
too.
be.
Me too.
Really? It's
absolutely.
And I don't want to get too far afield off track. There's one more point we want to cover, and then I want to just ask you a few general questions. But I keep hearing something, and I'm concerned about it, and it's this lost year concept for kids this year, and can they bounce back? And I'll just say this, and we can maybe table it and talk about it towards the end if you'd like, but I would like to believe, though, especially if we start employing some of these things that you're talking about, that we can make up for this year. And, what I keep telling my daughter, because she said, Dad, it was my first year in 6th grade, and I never even went to school, but for like 2 days. And I said, can I tell you something, though, kid? And she says, sure. And I said, I can only remember bits and pieces of 6th grade, but this is something you'll never forget because you were at home and you were with us and you were doing it online and it was crazy and it was all this stuff. And I said, someday when I'm long gone and you have grandchildren, you're going to tell them all about it, the way my grandparents talked about the Depression. So I said, try to hold on to what was interesting and new and kind of good about it and fun. in its own way. And, then she did say, well, got to admit, it's pretty cool to sit around in my pajamas half the day, and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think I just wanted to add that in there, Nina, that I think that we can, using a lot of this, we can pull out of this idea that, yeah, we did lose a year of a lot of vital connection, but I think we could make up for it. I just wanted to throw that in there because I think that goes right along with what you're talking about happiness through connection.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I mean, what I'm hearing is that you are building resilience in your daughter. And I do believe that our kids are so resilient, and it's going to take time. I mean, I think, just on, a separate soapbox, but like, I think we all have to remember that when we do quote unquote go back, like, it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time for our kids to reacclimate. It's gonna take time for them to remember how it feels to have FaceTime and be social all day. And, I'm thinking about the beautiful introverts like my 12-year-old, that there's been a lot of the fact that he's had, he loves to read. He's like a mega reader. He has been able to read for like 6 hours straight, week, all the time, and nobody bothers him. Right. Oh yeah. That's him. Like, he's like, whoa. So but like, it's gonna take time for them to come back, but kids are so resilient and they are so strong. And I hope that there are more parents out there like you who are saying, hey, this was a unique learning moment in your life. And yeah, parts of it were super hard and super lame, but what are the gems? What are the gems we can keep moving forward?
Oh, that's so good. And you're not just saying that because I'm the host of the show, right? You tell me if I was like full of it. You'd be like, Alex, no.
No, I promise you, I'm a very honest person. I will ask any of the actors who've ever worked with me.
That's the only way you can do it too. Okay, the last point on your 5 benefits of creative parenting is letting go of perfection, and I think we've touched on it throughout this whole discussion already. But please, what are we missing on that part?
Yeah, I mean, I think letting go of perfection honestly it runs under all of this. Like, we live in this world right now where I love me some social media. Like, I'm on Instagram. It's fun. It's great. But there are so many images right now that are just like pummeling us about what parenting looks like and how it should be perfect. And none of that is helping anyone. None of it. But again, going back to that idea that when you start a creative process, what you're picturing in the beginning is not what's going to come out at the end. Let that go. Getting our kids to let that go. There's a lot of kids out there who it's really hard. They picture, whatever it is they want to create in their head. I want to draw a unicorn. And then they draw the unicorn and it doesn't look like the one in their head. And they tell a story to themselves that they've failed. When in fact, they've created something beautiful. And it's so important. A quick story from my theater days, actually, because as you can tell, I do a lot of both. A couple years ago, I had the honor of adapting Barney Salzberg's book, Beautiful Oops, into a musical. And Beautiful Oops, it's basically a picture book about the idea that every mistake is an opportunity to make something beautiful. And this actually, I will say, is about happiness through connection and letting go of perfection. So at one point in the show, we had to move from the scene we were in, which was at a parking garage, to the Antarctica where the penguin was. And we turned to the audience and we said, well, we have to make it snow. Could you all open your playbill and rip out a page and just rip that up and throw it in the air? So there was this moment, for like the show ran for like 3 months, where, twice a day on Saturday and Sunday, we had this audience ripping up their playbill and throwing the snow in the air. And it was this communal collective experience. I will never forget the eyes of the kids and the parents as they watched that they made it snow by doing something which is absolutely letting go of perfection, right? I mean, you're not supposed to rip up your playbill. That's against the rules.
Right.
And there's
we get to rebel.
Freedom in it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that is it. Yeah, I'm straining to think, and I won't much longer here. I'll hurt myself. But of like examples of that. But anytime I've kind of occasionally done that with my kid, where it's just clearly dad's kind of breaking the rules a little bit here, they love that because it's like, I think that's something, is that I think my kid has definitely learned in the past year is that dad's a human being. He was once a little boy. He had dreams. He has dreams still. He's my protector and he's my father first, and he is also my friend. I've told her this. Some parents think it's a little cool, but when I say cool, I don't mean like cool like Fonzie. I mean like cool, like kind of a little cool. But I told her this, and I say it gently and kindly. I say, at this stage in your life, I'm your father. I'm not your best friend. I'm going to be the guy who sometimes is going to tell you stuff you don't want to hear. I'm going to be the guy going, can you please put your dishes in the dishwasher? I'm going to be the guy, saying, hey, be more considerate to your mother about this. I tell her this all the time. It's not original to me. Nina, I want you to hear this. It's like, I'm hoping, she's 12. I'm hoping in about, let's say about 10 years that she'll fire me as a boss and hire me as a consultant. Right?
I love that.
That's where I want to be with her. But right now I can't be that. But every now and then I want her to see that mom and dad, before she came along, we're fully formed humans. We have our faults. We have all this stuff. So when I hear you say things like that great story about tearing up the program, giving these kids permission to do not just that, not just see an act of like, wow, this is not something we're supposed to do, but they're also becoming part of the show, right? You're again doing what you did with your son with the whiteboard. You're basically saying, you need to participate. I want to see you tell me how this makes you feel. And there's not one kid in that auditorium or that play, that theater who tore up their program the exact same way as everybody else. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. I think that's great.
I love, and that's exactly right, because when you let go of that perfection, I mean, yeah, we could have given them a piece of white paper with dotted lines and scissors. We absolutely could have. And that is a really wonderful opportunity to follow rules and learn how to do A, B, then C, then D, which is also a good skill set. It just doesn't happen to be the one that I'm teaching. It's like,
yeah, that's boring anyway.
Exactly.
There is so much more we can learn. I want, before as we sadly have to wrap up, I want though to ask you about your creative parenting club. What's that all about? How do we get in on it? More, please.
Absolutely. So I am bringing together parents who want to learn more about this. So we want to be able to start a community of folks who are all coming from the same mindset, where they're saying, okay, I want to try and figure out how to bring more joy, more imagination into my family. Doing a nice Zoom where we talk about it, where I give them the tool sets, where I talk about the 5 modalities of story, music, movement, visual art, and games. And I give actionable ideas. Right now, you can try this with your family. And then we can have monthly check-ins where we're giving more ideas, and we're also sharing with each other what's working, what's not, and giving ourselves permission. And this is the key, giving ourselves permission to try and fail and try again and learn, because creativity, it's not like a basketball that goes right in the hoop and you're done.
Right.
Like it's a constant game of, oh, I tried this and it worked really well. Oh, I tried this and boy, oh boy, did that not work. And then how do we learn from that? So that's at creativeparenting.net if you're looking for more information.
Creativeparenting.net. The link will be in the show notes. You're also on Insta, right? Is that for everybody, or is that private?
Oh yeah, I'm at Insta at Nina Meehan or at Creative Parenting, but CREATIV, no E, parenting.
Got it. All these links will be in the show notes. Nina, I got to say something here. It's been a tough year. It's not over yet, everybody. I'm very much, just because you can see the finish line doesn't mean you stop the race. We are not there yet, but we're getting there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It is not an oncoming train. It is goodness. But as we close in on that, I have to say, as a parent and as a citizen and as a fellow creative person in my own way, how blessed we are that we have people like you out there who are strivers and trying to find ways to connect and trying to help the next generation the way you're helping them, to me, the best way is that you're not asking them to, hide their light under a bushel creatively. You're not asking them to be just good widget makers. You're asking them to be good humans, good thinkers, kind people. And my hat's off to you. And I'm just really, I feel very blessed that we could get you here on the show.
Well, thank you. That is a really beautiful and meaningful thing that you just said, and I really appreciate it. And, if there's a parent out there who's listening and, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be little mini moments. That's all it takes. And it'll feel good. It'll feel good for you. It'll feel good for your kid.
Nina Meehan, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Gently. I'm the host of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and you are listening to the Mysterious Goings On podcast.
If I haven't mentioned it recently, you can get 10% off an autographed John Pilot mystery novel just for signing up for our email list. All you have to do is go to mgopod.com, roll down. Well, you can also do something else. You can click to put a little money in the tip jar, so to speak. You can donate to the show by clicking on the PayPal or PayPal credit link or your other debit or credit card, and you can drop $1 or $2 in and help support the show. What a great thing to do. But otherwise, you can save 10% off an autographed book if you just sign up and subscribe at mgopod.com. Go there, scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll see a box that says subscribe. You get 10% off your first mystery novels purchase when you sign up for our Best Podcast newsletter. The first time you get an email from us, write back and say, hey, I want my 10% off code. It's that simple.
Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.